It looked like somebody was bent over and had their head in the window of the deer blind, and it either heard me or smelt me, and he pulled his head out of the tent and stood straight up, and that shocked me. They don't make people that big.
The way it moved, almost as if it was gliding across the beach. I've never seen anything move like that in my life. They were screaming at each other in gibberish. It sounded like a language, and they were chuntering away back and forwards, back and forwards, back and forwards. I know what a bear looks like, and there is no way on this planet that what I saw were bears.
911, what are you reporting?
Jesus Christ, you better...
Sir?
See ya!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh.
This is Tyler from Woodstock, Georgia, and you're listening to the best podcast on the planet, Sasquatch Chronicles.
Welcome to the show. Tonight we'll be chatting with Vincent and his son Walker. And this incident happened to these guys back in July. They were actually on a Boy Scout trip out there in Idaho. And the 6 days they were out there, I'll let them go into it, but in the 6 days they were out there, there's a lot of weird things that happened that might even be beyond Sasquatch. And I'll let the guys go into it. If you've had an encounter and you'd like to be on the show, shoot me an email. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. Let's jump into it tonight. I want to welcome Vincent to the show. Vincent, thanks for coming on.
No, thank you for having me, Wes.
Yeah, and I also want to welcome your son, Walker. Walker, thanks for being here.
Thank you for letting us be here.
And I don't know if Vincent or Walker wants to start, but the incident took place in Idaho. We're going back to just July. If you would, whoever wants to start, kind of start from the very beginning. What were you doing and what happened?
Okay, well, I should note that I'm a scoutmaster to this troop, and it was actually our first year as a newly formed troop with going up to the scout camp. And mind you, we've been going up there in the years before as a part of different troops and through my volunteer work as a scouter in general. And the rundown is we would usually leave about Sunday afternoon to go up there. And that way it gave us time to set up camp and kind of get everyone acquainted with the area, hand out assignments like, hey, this is what you're going to do for the week. Monday morning started off the next day, and we checked everybody in. Kids were running off to their classes. Everything was great. Monday was almost uneventful. Rolling into Tuesday, we had gotten everybody up really early for a polar plunge. And mind you, it's kind of hard to do a polar plunge when the weather's about 50, 60 degrees, and the water's actually warmer than the outside air. And so with that, it's just a sequence of making everybody run into the water, run out, run in about 4 or 5 times. And then finally you're just in the water chilling. The day coming to a close, it was about, I'd say 7 o'clock at night. We're all chilling at the campsite, telling jokes, telling stories. we started hearing owls. And that's what kind of set things off. We first heard them, and it's just hooting back and forth. And all the kids are like, holy cow, that is cool. Like, I've never heard an owl this close. After that, it kind of went quiet again. And then we heard another owl a lot further out. But the one that we heard in the distance, to me, kind of sounded off. Not quite the same as the other owls we had heard. And to me, it's like, okay, cool. Maybe a scout's just, playing around, because scout camp, it's all about pranks, having fun. But this one, I can legit say, had a undertone to it. It wasn't straight high pitch. It was also a lower pitch at the same time. Like, I had never heard anything quite like this in particular. It was weird. And right when that went off, everything went quiet. And I mean, the pressure dropped, the atmosphere just started getting cold. Everybody noticed it. I thought I was doing a good job of hiding how I was reacting and feeling, but my other leader, he caught on really quick. He knew something was off too, just by how I was suddenly extra attentive. Even a couple of the kids and my son are like, holy cow, this is quiet. Why don't we hear anything? Then we heard another owl in the distance, not in the same location, but somewhere else. And it had almost the same weird hooting with that resonance. And then simultaneously, the owls that were in the trees above us would hoot, and they sounded different. We're like, okay, this is really cool, but I'm not going to say out loud to everybody there that something's off. We just kind of let the night go. But with that, the atmosphere kind of settled heavy too. Like, I would imagine it was just like a normal humidity movement, or the humidity just got higher and absorbed the sound. These are the thoughts going through my mind. And the boys were like, you know what? I'm tired. We're just going to go to bed. We had a long day. And for me personally, I wasn't tired. I'm just like, I need a shower. And scout camp had a shower schedule that we could only shower at certain times of the day. But I'd also noticed that I could kind of slip into the showers during staff time. And mind you, that was about 11 o'clock at night at this point. Not too long after, though, I got a text or a message from the girls' troop leader. The message just simply said, Vincent, are you hearing this? And I'm like, okay, it's kind of weird. So I replied back, what's it sound like? And she replied saying, it's a loud snorting, and it's getting closer. And so I hoofed it back up the camp, ran back to camp, and immediately I started hearing this loud snorting. And the leader, she is just kind of huddled up in her chair and just like staring at those trees. The snorting I heard, though, it was, again, that was weird. It sounded like something had a really bad cold, like it was stuffed up, and it was just breathing really snottily. It was loud. Like, I was surprised. It was still really loud. But something about my presence, it started pushing it away. Like, I got there. A little trick I picked up way back when is I would start clicking, like fast clicks. It sounds dumb, but it'll just be and the snorting stopped. After about a minute, I'm now shining my flashlight up into the trees, and I've got my hand initially on my Bowie knife. And I heard a couple of loud, like, stomps in the trees, and then nothing. And as I'm looking into this tree line, I see the weirdest thing. It was a tunnel in the trees. I shone my light into this natural tunnel trees. I could see the hillside just like straight through. I've never seen anything like this before. And I walked back up again, shine my light, and again, I'm seeing the hillside just right there with my light. And it was very unnerving. We didn't hear anything after that. Like it just, like it floated away. This thing, it just disappeared. Right after that, I go up immediately into the girls' camp and I'm talking to the leader. I yelled up like, "Hey, permission to enter." And they're like, "Yes, please, granted." And I go up there and I start talking to her and she's like, "What was that?" And I could see the fear in her face and a couple of the girls. And I'm like, "Don't worry about it. I don't think it's coming back tonight." She's like, "Again, what was it?" I'm like, it's probably an elk." She gave me a death stare. She's like, "Vincent, that was not an elk." I stayed up another couple hours after that point. Now, Wednesday, the next day, it started off, we had a typical camp out. The kids were having fun. And us leaders, we had to go down to what we call a commissioner's meeting. It's basically a meeting with all of the scout leaders and assistants who just talk with the camp director, the camp commissioner about, daily activities, what's going on, what's good, what's bad. Hey, these are the activities coming up. And during that meeting, a scout leader from the Wolf campsite, which was actually another, not quite a quarter mile up the road from us, but they were a ways up, not too far. And the scout leader up there, he tells us that, "Hey, I think we saw a bear last night. Just be cautious. We think we saw a bear." So from there, the camp commissioner separately also said, "Hey, yeah, a couple of the campsites on the other side of camp think they saw a bear also. We just want people to make sure to leave the food outside the camps, take it back to their vehicles, no food in tents." But when I spoke to the leader after, I asked him, like, "So how big was this bear?" And he's like, "Oh, that's the weird thing." He said, "I don't know if it was a bear. It was a big blob behind a tree, and then it stood up, and then it was gone. It went behind the tree and was gone." Oh, that is weird. Okay, good to know. We'll keep an eye out. And nighttime rolls around again, and everything went quiet in camp again.
Yeah, so that night I started to notice a pattern where, and literally as soon as the sun went behind the ridge, everything went silent. And it was the first time it happened, it was cold, but not like anything I've experienced before. It was a cold to your core type, not on your skin or anything. It was like in your chest. And then Wednesday night, I noticed the same thing, but it got even more cold and more pressure, like in your chest when night fell.
Yeah, I've experienced that too, where the force just goes unnaturally quiet. And it is almost like the atmosphere changes. What did you think was going on at this point, Walker?
I didn't really think too much of it. I just thought it was just a different environment. But something was off, but I wasn't sure what exactly. Because this is the first time I've experienced something like this, so I never really thought too much of it.
What about yourself, Vincent? What were you thinking was going on?
Personally, I knew something was up. I knew something not normal was in the area. Just based on what was going on and based on a hunting experience I had had 2 years earlier where I was actually being trailed by something that caused the same environmental shift. So, that was Wednesday. Thursday, moving into that, we had our second polar plunge go on. And this time it was more of the girls' turn because a substantial amount of them didn't go down for the Tuesday polar plunge. And this time I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go down with everybody because, I already had two boys that wanted to, no, more than two that wanted to go down and do it again. I need to actually back up because I missed a part of the story. Wednesday, when I woke up, and this is before the commissioner's meeting, I wanted to do an experiment and figure out where that snorting in the trees was coming from. And my assistant leader, he was with me. And mind you, we also had 4 other leaders that were just on the road and just like watching us do our thing. But we go over to where I saw the tunnel in the trees. And there was nothing. It was just a plain forest, no tunnel. I was the crazy guy. They're like, I thought you saw a tunnel here. I'm like, I did. It was plain as day, essentially. I could see straight into the hillside. But my assistant, as we're looking around, he noticed really big impressions in the grass that went into actually where I saw this tunnel. And he looked at me and was just like, holy cow. And we decided to follow those prints. And again, they're like depressions, no actual clear footprint. So we go into the woods at that point, and we could not walk 5 feet at a time without getting caught up on branches, making noise, kicking logs, kicking rocks. And this environment was very difficult to traverse quietly in a fast span. And the entire time that we're walking up into this area and getting caught up and running into different obstacles, everybody was hearing us. This thing that we did, it also confirmed that something was off, because not even a bear or an actual elk could move through this part of the forest quietly that fast. So, okay, moving back on to Thursday, we went back down to the polar plunge, and from there though, I talked to the leader, and she was also asking me like, so what do you think's going on? Like, and she told me that she talks to her husband, and her husband told her over the phone that, jokingly, oh yeah, it's Sasquatch. And she's like, that can't be real, right? And I'm like, honestly, like, I'm not going to dissuade anyone's opinion on this because of what we've experienced so far. Anyway, after that, we did the polar plunge. I didn't jump in this time. I just wanted to watch and take pictures for everybody. And we go back up to the camp, and things are back to normal. Kids were having fun. We did our usual commissioners meeting, and people were just like, hey, still be cautious, possible bear. Nobody saw anything at this point. Lunchtime rolls around, and I'm standing in line. We have a big line of scouts waiting to go into the chow hall to eat. And a couple of the staff members are starting to talk. They're like, hey, did you guys hear that? Well, not to me, but to each other. Like, hey, did you guys hear that like scream the other night? And I'm just doing my best now to overhear this conversation. The staff members were like, yeah, it sounded like an old woman just screaming. And another staff member's like, maybe it was just a scout screaming in his tent. And they just kept passing stories back and forth. And for us in the camp, they're like, I don't recall hearing a scream that night. But where the staff sleep, they're not too far away from the shower that I used on the Tuesday night. And they distinctly heard like what sounded like a woman, screaming. And then another one's like, yeah, the camp ranger, he saw something weird at the top of the camp, and he told staff members to not go up into wilderness survival for a day until he could go up there and check things out. At that moment, I'm like, whoa, back up. What did you guys just say? And that's when I started actually having a conversation with the staff members and getting more detail about the things going on that they're experiencing. And they're just telling me the week before when they had scouts, nothing happened. But for whatever reason, this week was just being, again, just totally weird for everybody. And so it was confirmation for me and for Walker that, okay, it's not just us. It's not just our camp that's having this go on. But Thursday, that night was the actual wilderness survival course and also stargazing. And for this event, we were going up into the wilderness survival area, which was at the top of the camp. And where they go, it's just going uphill further to the mountains and into the woods. Beautiful area. Absolutely gorgeous. And we had already sent the scouts off to wilderness survival right after dinner. So about 5:00, so they could go up and build their lean-tos and go through the lessons they needed to complete their merit badges, stuff like that. And as for stargazing, everybody who wanted to participate was going to meet at the flagpoles and then go up the road, which ironically passes by our camp. So for us, instead of going all the way down to the lodge to meet up with them, we're just going to wait for the group, just join up with them in front of our campsite and then continue up. And by this point, we were getting ready for all this to go down. We told all the kids, hey, go get washed up, go use the bathroom, whatever. And that's when things went silent, but we were trying to ignore it. So I'm going to pass it to Walker now.
So we were getting ready for wilderness survival or stargazing, and this was when everything went silent, but it was not quite fully dark yet. And me and three of my friends were up by the Kaibo, just brushing our teeth and all that. And they just would go behind on like the backside of the Kaibo just to goof around and stuff. And I'm just by the sink, which is on the side of it. And I'm just looking around, and I look at the tree line and I see like a thing. Like I get like 2 to 3 seconds of looking at this, and it was tall, like 8 feet tall, and it was like very lanky. It was hunched over with its like arms super long and thin, and its head was in the tree line, so I never actually saw its head, but it was well clearing over the tree line, and it just receded back into the tree line, and I stood there for like a minute, and then I immediately turned to my friends like, I need to talk to the leader and to my dad. So we all rushed down there, and I'm frantically telling him, like, I just saw something and I have no clue what it is. And we go over like back and forth, like, when I was up there, like when I was up there like a minute ago. And that was like, I could not sleep that later that night. So after that, he just tells me to like we like kind of stand there for a second, and he was like, we're just gonna have to keep a careful eye out tonight. And then after that, we all just go up to stargazing, and I noticed that it's more of an uphill area when we go up to stargazing. And I noticed that as soon as we pass a campground, the cold and silence literally just lifts like nothing. Like it just feels normal again. Like the cold goes away, the sound somewhat comes back, and then it was like a weird fog almost that felt like you're in like a fog of silence.
He saw that. And for me, it was hard to believe what he was describing because I'll be honest, I'm expecting a different description. I was not expecting the description he gave me. And mind you, it took a while for him to actually sit down with me to describe fully what he saw. And even then, I'm like, are you sure? Are you sure it wasn't like this or like that? Again, hard for me to believe, because I'm like, that just didn't match a lot of stuff I've been hearing about, the things I've experienced. But I could not discount it. When somebody tells you something, you have an innate sense. Like you can either believe them or you don't. And for him, it was, dang, I have to believe him, because we've already gotten this far with everything going on. And so it was peculiar. Like, don't know how to really go past that. Let's just play the night out as normal as possible. And I could tell that his personality shifted after that moment too. So even while we were stargazing, he was 100% accurate. We got up to the top where we're going, and it was lighthearted. People were just laughing. The environment was normal. We were all having fun. As we finished stargazing, our group got back together and we start heading down. And as we're walking down the forest, it just started feeling darker. Things were getting heavier. Things were starting to go quiet. And about halfway down, they got stark quiet again. You could not hear anything. And at that point, something out in the distance from us just popped. It's like something smacked a tree with a big stick or a big log. It was just a single pop that echoed, and we froze. We look around. We're like, okay, we're just gonna keep going back down. At that point, I pulled my flashlight and I'm just scanning that tree line as we're going all the way back down until we met up with everybody in our campsite. Thankfully, though, at that point, things kind of mellowed out. People were able to go back to sleep or not back to sleep, but go to their tents and bed down like normal. So that was our Thursday. Oh, and I should also note that Walker, he comes over to me. He's like, "Hey, do you hear the owl again?" And I couldn't really hear it too well at that point. But we walk over, and a couple of the kids, grouped up with us. So we walk over to just outside our camp, and we could start hearing the owls again. We're listening to this, and it's like, okay, let's just go to bed, and we'll go from there. So a lot of them did their best of trying to go to sleep, but the next morning, the girls' leader, when she woke up, she was telling me that night she heard something walking around their tents. And I'm like, well, we usually get deer walking around our tents, and if you're not used to the dark and all that, it's kind of unnerving. Yeah. But she's like, well, it was heavy, like big, heavy steps walking around our tents. That is weird. I don't know what to say to that. It's just, I did my best to comfort her and the kids, but she was also doing her best to not alert the kids also. And the other thing too about this whole week, even prior to Walker's seeing what he saw, we did not tell the kids anything about what was going on. I didn't allude to anything at all to anybody. And that's also what made what I saw on Tuesday in the tunnel of trees more confirming, is the fact that Walker saw the creature or whatever at roughly the same spot that I had seen the tunnel in the trees, like almost, right where I was shining light. Like, there is something to this. But again, they had no clue. Like, all they were knowing at this point was, holy cow, it's getting cold. It's so cool to hear the owls, but things kind of feel weird. And otherwise, yeah, we're just going to do our thing. Do. So yeah, we kept them in the dark. I didn't tell Walker anything about what was going on until Saturday when we were starting to drive home. On Friday, it was a normal day. Like, we had no issues. It was, life as usual. The forest is happy and plucky. And we were just planning on completing all the merit badges, getting everything signed off, and then going up to our fire bowl, which was our Friday night end of the camp, hoorah. Everybody performed skits, sing songs. And that's when Walker heard in the distance a barking and screaming. And so I'll let him describe that.
Yeah, so we were just chilling at the fireball, and I didn't really think too much of the day before on what I saw. It was still back there. But on Friday, it was like near like the middle of the events and everything, and I hear this barking with a scream and like aftertone to it. And I genuinely didn't know what it was, and I even asked like one of my friends someone sitting next to me, like, did someone bring a dog or something? Like, we were joking around, and then we kind of just forgot about it. But now, more I think about it, more I think about like what that was no dog. More I like remember back to what it actually sounded like, and that in fact it even came from the direction of our campsite that all the stuff was happening. It sounded like a bigger dog, but then it was like a long, like, think of like an angry dog with like a growl, but then after every bark, midway through, there was a scream, like a person aftertone to it. And it just did that for like 2 seconds, and then it was quiet again, but you can still hear the echoing through the forest about it. But it did not sound, it sounded like a dog, but did not sound like a dog either. It sounded more like a person trying to mimic a dog, but like it was half and half.
Yeah, that's really creepy. It's like two things that really should never sound like one another, a human and a dog. And I was reading your dad's email about what you had seen, and yeah, I'm not so sure it was a Sasquatch. Would you kind of describe what you saw that night when this thing went into the bushes?
I don't really know what it was. It did not. And so later on, I kept on like seeing or like matching descriptions to anything like in the cryptids. It was a long, lanky thing where its torso was extremely long. Its legs were short, and I could not see its feet or head, but its arms were extremely lanky, and its elbows were like down to its like knees. And it was like hunched over, but it was still very well clearing the tree line. And in since we're like somewhat close to it, I can even see like some of its like malnutrition spine kind of poking out, like a skin wrapped like malnutrition person or something. But it was tall. Its back was turned towards us, but it did not have any fur that I saw. But it looked like it had like a gray, like a darkish gray type skin, unless the lighting was affecting it. But it was like all I saw was its back and its arms and somewhat of its legs. But the torso was huge. Like it was tall. It was like no longer than 3 or 4 feet wide, but it was well over 10 feet tall. I genuinely had no clue. I was sitting there trying to comprehend if I even saw it, but I was for sure it was there because it was there for like 2 or 3 seconds before it just faded into the dark tree line, which is also very dense. But I just thought it was like some sort of creature that I know it was terrifying. Later that night, we were actually sitting by our campfire. And this was after the stargazing, and the owl we heard, it was somewhat of like the last 2 nights, but it had a human aftertone to it. Like it sounded like an owl, but had a deeper, raspy tone to it that did not sound. It sounded almost like it, but it had that off sound that did not sound like an owl.
Yeah, it sounds like a place where there's a lot going on. Are you getting freaked out at this point? Or are you kind of wanting to leave? I mean, I would.
Yeah, I was honestly, I didn't know what I was thinking, but it was somewhat of, yeah, like this is crazy. This is happening. I didn't even know if I wanted to leave or stay. It was like in the 50-50.
What about yourself, Vincent? Are you thinking it's time to go home?
I guess I'm weird, but for me, it was, I'm curious, and I personally wanted to go out and see what it was. Call me crazy, but I honestly knew, though, talking to him and the others, they were just like, yeah, I don't really want to be here anymore, but thank goodness it's Friday and we're leaving tomorrow anyway. So a lot of them were just like, yeah, we're going to just hold it out till the morning and just be gone and not even worry about it. I could tell they were unnerved. They did not want to be there anymore. They were too distracted at that point from kind of finishing things up. But when we did get back to our campsite after the fireball, myself and the other leaders, I feel like we did a decent job of distracting them, because we're just like, hey, tell us about the best parts of the week. We're not going to even ask about the bad parts. We're just going to be, tell us about the funnest parts, and just let them go with it. We started a joking chain. We started telling dad jokes. Everybody had something to contribute. And so, again, we were trying to do our best to make it fun at that point and to distract them. After that, we took off and we just started talking about it. My assistant, we were leaving, and he could not find his car keys. And he was also one of our drivers to get up there. He had 3 kids in with him. And it's like, well, we can't leave until we find his keys. And he's like, oh, we need to check out wilderness survival. I'm like, cool. We got to go all the way back up to the top of the camp. He's like, do you know where it was? I'm like, oh yeah, I've been up there plenty of times. And plus on top of that, I pinned it on X directly. So I would have future reference to go back up there in the future. And as we get back up into there, it was quiet. It wasn't the dead silence, but it was quiet. And we go over to where we'd all lay down at to watch the stars, and sure as shit, his keys were right there in the grass. We're like, yes, we're not going to be stuck up here. So we get his keys. We also found like a bunch of other stuff that kids had left up there too. A couple of flashlights, a pocket knife. There's a lot of stuff that we ended up turning into lost and found. But beside the point, he picks up a stick and he hits it against a tree. And I look back at him like, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, I just want to see if we get a response. And he hits it again. I'm like, no, stop. No, we're not doing this here. And it's like, no, let's just get going. He's like, okay, yeah. I was like so excited. I want to see if something would knock back or whatever. I'm like, I'm out of here. And we start walking out of there. We paused because we just heard a loud knock further up in the mountain. I look at him. I just shake my head. I'm like, I can't believe you did that. And his eyes were wide. He's like, okay, I'm sorry. Let's go. And we got out of there. Because by this point, there was nobody left in camp. Everybody was, or at least in that part of the camp, everybody was checking out, and we're leaving. And we get back to our car, and I'm like, I still can't believe you did that. But okay. So anyway, now fast forward after that, he had sent me stuff that he'd found on BFRO, and we were talking about it. And then I was listening to your podcasts. At that time, I was listening to your show via YouTube. And so I just screenshot the episode number and tell him, like, hey, go to this point of people talking about different things. And he's like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what what we heard, or that's exactly what we experienced. And I even sent stuff like that to the girls later. And after a point, though, she's like, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but it's fun to talk about, but certain things, let's just leave it at that. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I'm like, that's fair. I'm not one to push it. And so, from there on out, we would, talk about things. And then, the following year, we went to a different scout camp in Montana. The trip was long. We're driving from Mountain Home all the way to middle of Montana. That whole camp was normal. Like, we had a great time. And I was someone who, I was going through, personal issues at that time. And so I would start walking the camp late at night and had no ill experiences like we had at the scout camp the year prior. A few months ago, so July of 25, we went back to the same scout camp that we had the experiences at and actually stayed in the same campground. We had a good majority of the same kids that had been up there a couple years prior. And again, no issues. Like, that whole week it was a lot cooler. And I'm talking temperature wise, a lot cooler than a couple years before at night. But past that, it was just normal. Like, me and my assistant were always on the watch out, but we didn't have to watch for anything. It was just camping like usual. And so, again, that's a part of what kind of solidified our experiences up there. And especially talking to my son and a couple of his friends. But I also should note that I had been up there a few more times in between. They're just like 2-day campouts at this point. And I'd posture myself in the camp further up in between where everybody was sleeping and the edge of the wilderness on purpose. And there was one year where we did experience something else, like things on just a regular 2-day camp out. Things went quiet. I'm like, okay, I might need to expect something, but that was really it. And I would drive down to where the lodge was, and I drive back up because with it not being a full summer camp and off season, I could do that. I didn't have to walk everywhere if I didn't want to. And after the first night, the kids did their thing, but then the second night, they're like, hey, can we camp up in the campsite, where you are? Like, yeah, I've already got things set up. And we had a big rock disappear in the road.
Yeah, so I was in the passenger seat. It's like pitch black. And since it's like the camp is like a big loop, and his camp site was like at the top left-ish of the camp. And as we're approaching the top right, there's just a random boulder that looks like it's been thrown, because you can see like other little rocks like from where it came from. It looked like it got thrown, and it was big, a huge bowling, like 2 bowling balls. And yeah, we were like we're just, and my he's like assuring us like, oh, nothing's wrong, and we see that, and we're like, so nothing's wrong, because no one else actually went up there that weekend. It was literally just him and us. All the other camps were like at the bottom of the camp.
Yeah, that's really weird. And I don't know if Sasquatch is doing it or not. I've experienced it, but it was with logs. And this was a year later?
Yeah, I'd say it's about a year later. And towards the end of the season. So that puts us in September? Yeah, it is September. And yeah, it was really quiet up there. And anyway, we saw this boulder right there. And suddenly my son and his friend are like, we're sleeping in the truck tonight. I've already got my tent set up and my cot aside from where the truck was. And so they, out of their nature, they're like, yeah, they're scared, actually. They were honestly just unnerved. And the thing that kept us from actually going home that night, because a lot of things finished up, was the fact that I had stayed up almost 24 hours the night before because I was helping out with overnight ceremonies or overnight functions for this scouting event. And for safety, I'm not going to drive 3 hours from McCall back to Mountain Home at between like 10 o'clock at night to 1 in the morning. I told them we are going to stay up there overnight. So you guys just stay in the truck. I'll be out here with my necessary precautions and I'll keep an eye on you. And nothing happened though after that. It was just the weirdness of having that rock thrown out into the middle of the road that I had to get out and leverage off the road to get the truck by because it was that big. I didn't want to, destroy something or whatnot. I'm also glad it wasn't a tree pushed across the road, even though I always carry a chainsaw in the backcountry because I've learned from microbursts in the past. You don't have a chainsaw in the backcountry, you get into trouble real quick.
Yeah, I've experienced that twice. And again, I don't know if it's Bigfoot or not. I didn't see what placed the tree there. But it's happened to me on 2 occasions. And in both occasions, we had just driven up the road or down the road and coming right back. And all of a sudden there's a lot, it's not a tree that fell over. Someone put it there. And that's the unnerving part. And that rock wasn't there when you guys headed up.
No, it was definitely not there. And I'd been driving up and down from my campsite back down all day. I'd been up there about 3 or 4 times. I'd even driven the full loop of the camp twice. And that rock was not there until we're going up. And there it is.
In both situations, when it's happened to me, it's very unnerving. You're wondering if someone's watching you or because something put it there, and it makes you wonder, are they trying to keep you in or are they trying to keep you out?
Yeah, we had that feeling too. But in this case, it was it almost felt like trying to keep us out. So I'd also looked around in that particular spot and it wasn't rolled there. It was as if it was dropped or thrown. There were no rolling depressions. And this type of season, it was dry enough that we weren't allowed fires. And I can see footprints clearly in the dust in the road, but it was just there. Like, holy cow, it did not roll. Yeah, I agree with you though. It is very unnerving and definitely creeped us out.
This whole trip with the Boy Scouts, what a weird area. The way you're describing kind of a hole in the trees and then it wasn't there. The vocalizations you guys are hearing, that weird thing that your son saw. I think I would have left after the first day, but I'm kind of a wimp. And I do appreciate you coming on and sharing it because there's a lot going on there. I ask everyone on the show, what do you think Sasquatch is? What's kind of your take, Vincent?
I never thought I'd be asked this question, but I guess I should have been prepared for it, knowing that you do ask that. Personal belief, I don't think it's anything otherworldly. I don't think I personally can't say Nephilim. I can't say anything like that. I think it's just a relic of the past. Something that has been here for a very long time, but we've never had to really encounter it because of its habits. It adapted to us. Could it be like an ancient Homo sapien, Homo erectus? I don't know. Or maybe Neanderthal of a type.
So you're kind of thinking it's something more natural.
Yeah. However, I do believe there is something unnatural that's attached to them. I don't know how to make sense of that because it just goes back to, again, other experiences I've had yeah, really, it's been here a long time.
Let me ask you, with all the weird things that went on this trip with the Boy Scouts that you went out with and everything that happened, and I know the mindset is that it was probably Sasquatch, and I would probably agree with you. I think most things that happened on that trip probably were Sasquatch. Other things sound more like that forest is haunted, from the atmosphere changing to everything going dead silent to, and again, all that stuff gets reported with Sasquatch, but how do you have that stuff happen or you experience it and then go, well, Sasquatch is normal? And I'm not trying to talk you out of your beliefs by any means.
Yeah. So I'm not one to just shy away from the woods, especially because it's helped me, being out there has helped me emotionally and get over things. Like it's where I go to just unwind, relax, and forget about everything else. And also knowing, there's other things out there like wolves and cougars and all that, like I've mentioned. But it's also left me curious. Like, I do kind of want to experience more and maybe see something myself. But I feel like that also comes with a cost. And I don't want to lose my love for the outdoors with having a more close encounter than I've had before, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I know what you mean. If it's a normal hominid, you don't have to give up your love of the forest. But if there's something more to it, you would have to. Walker, what about yourself? What do you think Sasquatch is?
I kind of hard to describe because I know he has some sort of paranormal, but then again, he is somewhat of a physical. So I personally believe that he's a sort of monkey from really long time ago before humans were around that basically was gifted.
And Walker, I wanted to ask you, what do you think that creature was doing right before you saw it?
So the way it was, it almost seemed like it was stalking. Like it was just stalking, and then when I finally got a glimpse of it, it was already retreating back into the woods.
And when you say stalking, do you mean it was stalking you?
Yeah, because the way it was facing, it was almost directly towards us because it basically turned around fully. But I could still see somewhat of its side, so just to turn around and walk back.
Do you think the creature was truly hairless, or do you think because of lighting conditions, it just kind of appeared that way? I'm really curious on your thoughts.
It might have not had hair because I did see somewhat of its very small glimpse of its spine kind of sticking out, like it was malnutritioned. But I did not see any hair unless it was the light. But I do believe it was hairless. I actually drew a picture later on, but it was hunched over and its shoulders were above the tree line, and its torso alone was well over 6 feet long, but it had no wide mass. It was all vertical, and its upper arms were super long and lanky that it was down to its knees, and you can kind of see its forearms somewhat bent below below its legs, so I could not see its hands either. It was something that I've never even heard been described before.
Yeah, I think out of all the years I've been doing this, Walker, I've taken 2 or 3 reports, and I'm not even sure that they were Sasquatches. There is reports of Sasquatch with limited hair or kind of sparse hair, but to be completely bald, completely hairless. When you first described it, it almost made me think of a tall gray alien or something like that.
Yeah, because its torso was already like super thin, and its arms were like a quarter of that. Same with its upper legs, but I could not see its like lower legs or its head or shoulders.
Yeah, it's disturbing what you saw, Walker. I don't know really. I don't want to say Sasquatch. I don't know. That whole trip was very strange. That whole trip was very it's like the Boy Scout trip from hell. And I really appreciate you guys coming on and sharing it. I really enjoyed chatting with both of you guys.
No, thank you very much for having us. Like, we're very appreciative. I wasn't honestly expecting an answer or to even be here today. It was just, I wanted you to at least hear my story. And Walker, he had actually been pushing me for the last year and a half to email you. Are you going to email him? Are you going to email him? You going to tell him about it? And finally, yeah, I pushed the button. Here we go. I'll just get it out there. So again, that in short, thank you very much for hearing this out.
And Walker, thank you, brother, for coming on the show.